I squatted behind the burned-out truck and wished I was somewhere else. Aruba, Jamaica, Cabo. Hell, I'd go for Detroit at this point. The air shimmered with the heat. The smell of melted tar and rancid garbage filled my nose. A bead of sweat trickled down the back of my neck, and I resisted the urge to scratch, unwilling to break my focus, even though I was ready to give up on this particular job. A jogger turned down the street and ran past where I was hidden. A jogger. I rolled my eyes, marveling at the foolishness of people, that someone would care so much about their fitness routine that they'd go out for a run in what residents now called New Hell was the epitome of stupid, even though his lycra shorts and tank top were accessorized by a shoulder holster and pistol. Jogging with an open carry. This is what the world had come to. Idiots should have just bought a treadmill. A Buick sedan that looked like it came out of a 70s movie set came careening the opposite way down the street, swerving and nearly hitting the jogger as the passenger yelled something rude out the window. The jogger jumped out of the way, pulling the pistol from his shoulder holster and swearing as he turned and popped a shot off at the car. The Buick hit the brakes, then slammed into reverse. The jogger widened his stance, shooting into the open space where the vehicle's back window had once been. The man leaning out the passenger side window returned fire. The jogger danced around, still shooting. A few stray bullets hit the burned-out truck, pinging against the hood and knocking a spray of mortar from the brick wall behind me into my hair. This was the hit I'd been tipped off about? This? I'd expected a drug deal set up, not an armed jogger getting shot by two yahoos in an ancient Buick. The car swerved, then abruptly sped up. With a yelp, the jogger sprinted across the street toward a metal dumpster, still firing. The Buick's passenger slumped from the window, dropping his gun. The jogger tried to dive for cover behind the dumpster, coming up short and hitting the ground just in time for the Buick to run him over with a sickening crunch. The back of the sedan slammed into the corner of the dumpster, sliding sideways and coming to rest against a graffiti-covered wall. I stayed put, biding my time. When no one got out of the Buick, I made my move. Sprinting forward, I scooped the pistol off the pavement and darted behind the damaged dumpster. The pistol I'd just grabbed was a Glock 43. Nice. Small. Perfect for concealed carry. Glocks could take a beating, so I was sure being bounced onto the street hadn't done any significant damage. I dropped the magazine and checked it as well as the chamber. There were still a few bullets left, so I snapped the magazine back in, then stuffed the pistol into my pocket. No one had emerged from the car or come racing down the street, so I tentatively made my way forward. The jogger was flat as roadkill on the 405. I could tell by his scant attire that he didn't have anything of value besides the one pistol, and maybe a few bucks in his pocket, so I turned my attention instead to the occupants of the Buick. From the condition of his skull, the driver was clearly dead. I slunk around the front of the car and checked the passenger, who was also dead. Then I eased my own pistol out of my shoulder harness and peered into the back seat. Empty. Well, empty of bodies or living beings, that was. I glanced around to make sure no one else was coming, then stuck my weapon back in the harness and got to work. 5 minutes later, the two bodies were out of the car and dumped in the road. I'd scored another 9mm, a bent spare magazine off the squished jogger that I tossed aside, and a .45 off the driver. But the real haul was what I'd seen in the back seat. 5 cases full of ammo. In New Hell, guns were everywhere. Bullets were the commodity everyone paid top dollar for. The back seat of the Buick had the equivalent of what I'd make in 3 months scavenging. Looking up and down the street to make sure I was still alone, I broke open the case full of 9mm bullets and stuffed as many boxes as I could into the pockets of my cargo pants and the small backpack I carried with me. I could hardly move with the weight and had barely made a dent in the contents of the back seat. Fuck, I didn't want to leave this behind, which meant I'd need to leave my motorcycle behind and take the ancient Buick instead. Okay, decision made. If I was going to take this piece of shit and drive it to the pawn shop, then I might as well check the trunk. For all I knew, there was an entire family of dead bodies back there.